Welcome to the OC Politics Show, keeping politics bipartisan, local, and on the level.
Hey, welcome to the OC Politics Show, and it's your host, Todd DeVoe, and...
Hi, I'm Joe Matthews.
Joe, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Man, so it's been a great... Did you have a good weekend?
Nothing but nice Netflix, bed, and takeout.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Netflix bend is awesome. Hey, Joe, you know what? And today we're going to talk about what is a city manager, and who runs a city, who runs the city council, the city manager, what do they do? And this week, the city of Westminster has put a hiring freeze, or hiring hold, I should say, on the city manager after finding out some possibly shady activities in this past. But what is a city manager? And is a city manager a non-democratic institution that needs to be re-examined? So, Joe, political whip around.
Here we go.
Westminster puts city manager hiring hold after controversy.
The determinants of U.S. city managers' sense of power.
The Santa Ana city manager gets $453,000 pay package, tops the OC salary list.
And navigating the ups and downs of the council-manager relationship.
So, Joe, both of us worked in city government. Both of us understand what the city manager does, and the fact that, at the end of the day, the city manager is the boss of the city. Where does that leave the city council?
Well, most California cities use a city council form of management, which what that means is that the city council comes up with, they pass the ordinances, they set the policy, they approve new projects, programs, they ratify the annual budget. And then the city manager comes along and he says, I'm going to do that for you. No problem. Thank you very much. So the city manager makes stuff happen for the city council and vice versa.
Well, okay, so in that relationship, and who holds the true power then? Is it the city council or is it the city manager?
Well, it depending on the city. If it's a new city manager, that city council has all the power. If it's an older city manager that's been there, Howard Chambers, love and respect the guy. He was a city manager for 30 years at the city of Lakewood before he retired. And that's because he hired the people. He got those relationships. As these city council people came in and got elected and then reelected, they'd come to him to find out what they needed to do to stay in the positions that they were in. They became the power broker of each city.
So let's talk about the Lakewood model of governments, right? I mean, it was realistically the first form of city council, city manager, in the sense where they did complete contracted out, right? They contracted fire, they contract police, they contract public works. A matter of fact, the city of Lakewood, when it first started, I want to say it had like 6 employees or something like that. So why is that contract model so, it's not revolutionary anymore, but why is this so important if you think about the way Southern California specifically uses city contractors like this?
Well, who are the most important people in those contracts? Fire and sheriff's department. And having those relationships with those county relationships are the most important, because they provide the public safety for the city. And that is the number one issue that goes to their particular budget. So if you have those relationships to the higher ups, then you run your city that much better, and it trickles down.
So the city of Placentia, for instance, just fired, matter of fact, I think they have their own starting July 1st, if I understand correctly, fired the fire department, OCFA. And it was a big deal, number one. And number two, some of the controversy on that was saying that it was the overreach of the city manager of removing OCFA from the contract. Now, to kind of put it in perspective, OCFA was asking for a 25% increase in fees due to them. At the same time, The city cut the police budget, I think, by 10 or 15%, including hiring freezes and some other austere issues that had to do with the police department and budget. And that was one of the reasons why they decided to go with their own fire department, because they felt it was cheaper. Now, that being said, making those decisions realistically has to be approved by the city council. So the city manager can't just unilaterally just get rid of contracts, right?
Well, the city manager, their job is to whisper sweet nothings into their ears if it works better for the city.
So that goes back to that question then. Is the city manager really the power in the city, or is it the city council?
Like I said, it all could be different with a different set of city council members who maybe that's what they got elected on, was that issue. And then they get their majority, and then they take out the city manager because they don't like that city manager. So it's a double-edged sword. You know, the city council, I mean, the city manager, really all he has to worry about is keeping a majority happy. And we talked about this earlier, Todd. We usually find out about a city manager getting fired very quietly and very quickly. For the most part, we always hear, hey, let's support our city manager. He's so great. He's so wonderful, until he makes a bad choice and gets on the wrong side of the majority.
So let's talk about Westminster, since they're in the news right now, trying to find a new city manager. They haven't had a person in that position full-time wise. They had like interims for a long time now. Looks like they finally found the person they wanted to. They went through the full background search. They brought in a consultant, hiring consultant.
Bob Hall.
What was that?
His name is Bob. Well, it's not his company is Bob Hall.
Bob Hall. Right. So they bring Bob Hall in to find the guy. They go through interviews, so forth and so on. They're getting ready to approve them, and then boom, they stop. What's going on with Westminster?
Well, that city attorney said, hey, something doesn't look right. Let's put this on the back burner till we figure it out. And it turns out that there was a pending legal case against Mr. Ty on his misconduct at his last previous job at what was the city? It was
Alhambra.
What's that?
Alhambra?
No.
Monterey Park?
Monterey Park. Thank you so much. Yes. 2 years ago this happened, where he was questionably escorted out the door of City Hall there. But he has since filed paperwork protesting that decision. And when I dug deep into it, the integrity, let's see, I have it written down here. The integrity deputy from the integrity unit already cleared him of all wrongdoing.
Mm. So why is this like a due diligence thing? I mean, like, I'd figure that if the city council hires this headhunter to go look for a city manager, that this headhunter has gone through, combed through his background, legal has checked through this when they brought people forward. It's not like this is the first time they're seeing this guy. They've been, courting and dealing with him for a bit now, right? I mean, they've gone through interview panels. They should have done some sort of background check before they're about to pull the trigger on them. Why? And it goes back. Why now? What happened in this process to where? Wait, let me rephrase the question. Who didn't like him?
Yeah, what side of the majority minority said this is how it's going to go down? Now, remember, the city manager wasn't the one that made this announcement. It was the city attorney. So it took the burden off any city council member or the city manager having to make a bad announcement saying, hey, we have to back up on this particular decision.
Sure. Let's, since we're talking about this, let's talk about the city attorney for most part. Are the city attorneys, most cities, are they contracted employees or are they employees?
It depends on the city. Some cities have multiple have multiple contracts. Some law firms have multiple contracts with cities to provide legal services, and they assign someone to be their city attorney. And then some have an outright dedicated, full-on city attorney that is dedicated to that particular city.
So, I mean, and the only reason why I bring up that question is does this city attorney, when he's taking a look at something, I know they always look at the legal aspects and making sure the comma's in the right place or whatever. Do they report to in any way back to the community?
Not to the community. They
Right.
report back to the city manager.
So, and it goes back to this whole thing, right? And this is my crutch of the question, right? Is the city manager, city council, is a city manager a an institution that needs to be revisited to make it more democratic? Because it feels like it is, as you're hiring a person to work there, they could potentially be in there for many years. As long as you're making 3 city council members happy, your job is pretty secure, and then you get paid a ton of money. I mean, the city of Santa Ana's city manager is making like almost $500,000 a year, right?
Yeah, and that includes their pension, that includes their car allowance, that includes overtime. I did a little quick research. Do you mind if I give you a little rundown about who's making who?
Yeah, please do.
Oh, okay. So Brea, in your hometown of Brea, for 525 employees, this guy or this person is making $336,000. Aliso Viejo, which has only 37 employees, is making $358,000. So when you think about Brea has 500 employees and Aliso Viejo has 37 employees, and the Aliso Viejo manager makes that much more money, there's something off kilter here. Costa Mesa, $801 people, makes $475,000. They're the number one in Orange County. Cypress, $336,000. Fountain Valley, $315,000. Now, this is something I found interesting. I looked through Fountain Valleys and I found a police sergeant who gets a lot of overtime, and he makes $300,000 a year. So it's just strange. Irvine, 1,900 employees, $443,000. Now, for our guy in Westminster, there's something wrong here, and something stinks. They're going to only make They're only going to make $213,000. Now, in his previous job, he was making $189,000 in Huntington Park, and he's only getting a bump of $40,000 for the big job. That seems questionable to me as well. It doesn't even flow in with the rest of the Orange County numbers. Now, when you go to governmentjobs.com, supposedly when it's told about salaries, they're not supposed to get paid more than $175,000 to $250,000 for big metropolis cities or small cities, such as the ones with these kind of population numbers. So we are already outskewed the national average. This little clump of cities in Orange County making a ton of money on city managers, and they all know each other, right? How they meet, right? So they know what the standard is and what level is acceptable. I think Mr. Ty needs to figure out why he's going to get half of what everybody else is getting. Right?
If they let him in, right?
If they give him the job,
Right.
So
now going back on that, do you know how much the president makes a year?
Oh, and it's in the 6 figures at least.
He makes $400,000 a year.
400,000. And a city, a county supervisor makes as much as a standing judge, which is about 179,000. So it's just amazing how these pro athletes, city managers, are getting paid as much as they're getting paid.
It's interesting though. Because think about this: to run for president, right, of the United States, right? You're I suppose in the end of the day, you probably make more money on the back end, but your dirty laundry, if you will, is being aired. They're looking for like every possible thing you've ever done wrong. Like everybody, you got, when President Obama ran, everybody's concerned about his birth certificate, and with Trump, they want to see all his taxes from when he was like 15. It's like all this kind of weird crap you have to do for a $400,000 a year job. When you could just be a city manager and make that much plus more, and no one even gives a crap about you unless somebody gives a crap about you.
Yeah, It really boggles the mind how much, it's when you take your we both have our degrees in public administration, and we talk about transparency, and we talk about
Mm.
budgets, and we talk about uh, the bang for the buck, right? And it seems almost like there's a racket. It feels like a racket as much as the money. I mean, when I look at what it takes to be a city manager, yeah, they deserve the money, but they don't deserve that much money, which is, and no one's questioning it because it comes down to 3 or 4 people who decide, and it's a small little cliquey club that decides that kind of money, and the public doesn't know unless those city council members say, "Hey, we had a problem with our city manager. We had to get rid of him." That's the only time they hear.
Yeah, I mean, it interests me because I mean, I know like a lot of the public, they're upset that CEOs of companies through stock options and all this other kind of stuff are making X amount of money more than the lowest employee that's on their thing, and they want to pass these laws that say, oh, if your lowest employee makes $15 an hour, you can only make X amount of money more above them, which is private industry, right? I disagree with any of those type of moves, by the way. But when it comes to your city government officials and your people who taxpayers' monies are going towards, I don't hear the public outrage on those pay scales, which kind of blows my mind a little bit. Just kind of put that out there. Now, I have my reasons why I think that they don't say anything, but I mean that's just my opinion, and I'll keep that to myself right now. But why is that? Why do you think that there's this big outrage for the private sector who goes out and makes as much money as they possibly can make through stocks and all this other kind of stuff, but you never hear anything about public sector employees and how much they make?
Well, I think the public sector should be more scrutinized. I think people we're not sexy.
Mm.
It's not a sexy thing to talk about. I think the reason why cities like Irvine and Santa Ana and Costa Mesa make big money is because those towns are highly affluent. They have lots of powerful friends, and they can keep things just the way they are.
It used to be that people took government jobs because they were secure, right? Less chance of getting fired, I suppose. They had the pension, and they would take less money on the front end to have more security on their retirement on the back end, right? Where in the private sector jobs, obviously, you had less security on the back end, but you could make more money on the front end. And you've noticed like now that with private sector jobs, those pay has not kept up with inflation necessarily. And so the money that you're making on private sector jobs now are not as much as you make on the public sector jobs. When do you think that balance changed?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the unions. These cities used to have pretty strong unions that protected the clerk, protected different aspects of a city, and those rights have waned, and now it's easier for someone just to come into an organization and do whatever they want to save the bottom line.
Mm, absolutely. So at the end of the day, do you think that the city manager, city council model is the right model for democracy?
It depends on the people. If you have, 4 people that really have the right mindset and deserve to be there and they're trustworthy, then it should work the right way. But when you get 4 people that can connive themselves into a salary like, what was that city in Southeast Los Angeles? Bell, California. I mean, and then you have like last year, Redlands fired their city manager, and he was making $800,000 a year. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and that's just greedy public servants who've kind of lost their way. And really, what I would like to know is why aren't the people up in the state governments not measuring and publicizing these salaries and shaming these groups, that it just doesn't add up to a fair salary compared to what normal people make.
What's that mean? What's the average? Maybe you don't know, and we could look it up pretty quickly. But what's the average salary? What's the mean? Actually, let's go with mean. What's the mean salary in the private sector? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm just saying. But when you look at like what this is governmentjobs.com. I mean, this is a national. They're using the same city manager model, same information, and the salaries are half. The high-end salaries that they quote to expect in the business are half as little as what we do here in Orange County. And those numbers are just going to go higher as we go along. You get a new manager, and the Anaheim retires, and they have to bring in a new manager. That they have to attract, certain managers that only have a certain skill set, and then that salary goes up, and then so there's no checks and balances right now. I think the state needs to step in and put some limitations on what these cities can pay their people, because it's really ridiculous.
On a quick search, I couldn't find the average salary. I found, or the mean salary. I found the average salary according to payscale.com. And they said in California, the average salary is $79,000. So just kind of put that in perspective of how much more the city manager for the city of Santa Ana is making compared to the average. In Orange County, if you're making $80,000 a year, you're actually considered on the poor side of the scale. So to kind of put that in perspective.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate that.
Yeah. No. So no.
I gave away my tax bracket. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, it's like there's studies done with salary. And here's the deal. I want to end my section with this. Look, I don't want to slag anybody for making the money that they make, especially people in law enforcement and fire departments, public works. Those guys have blue collar jobs. They're working hard, and they're putting their time in. And whether they're making money overtime, which it doesn't make a difference, it's there. They're putting their hard work in and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so. And I'm not trying to say that we should be cutting salaries necessarily or doing this. My point about this entire thing is that we have positions here that residents of these cities don't even realize what money's going out, what money's coming in, and what these people do. And the fact that there's really no way for a city who gets upset with their city manager to remove them unless they can sway 3 city council members out of the 5. So the old saying is, as long as you have 3 votes, your job is secure. When these city managers do get fired, their severance pay normally is their entire contract until their contract is done. So in essence, you're paying for 2 city managers at some point. And that being said, a lot of the contracts are saying that you can't fire them 90 days prior or 90 days before or after an election. So there's definitely a secure job. And again, if city managers, they're out there, they're doing a great job. I'm not trying to say that they don't deserve what they get. But the point is that what's the system look like, and what do the residents have to say about how the system works? So Joe, we'll leave you for the final, and we'll cut out after you're done.
Oh, I was going to say, according to the court controller's office, government compensation in California website, Martinez, our guy from Redlands, his list salary was $255,000. His total wage is $208, and in 2018 included a one-time payment of $225,000 for unused vacation, and then another $364,000 in unused a new sick call. So one of the last things I want to end with, though, Todd, if I get a chance, I want to have everyone show up tonight at the OC Board of Education. They're deciding whether or not these kids should wear masks or have social distancing. The recommendation is nothing, absolutely nothing. So at 6 o'clock, show your pro-mask stance and your protection of your children, because this is ridiculous.
Thanks, Joe. Hey, and everybody, don't forget to please follow us on Facebook, on YouTube, and on your favorite podcast player. We'll see you all next Monday on the OC Politics Show.